What's good, my man? Oh, that's neat. What is that?
Prepping. Prepping today, aren't we?
Yeah, we are, man.
I
You're
was
listening to the Crucible, guys.
on
Sorry,
the
I didn't mean to
Crucible
cut you off.
podcast. I am Paulie. This is Emil. No, we talked about prepping, and I dumped out a bunch of silver junk, dirty stuff here in front of me, and then out popped like one of these little guys right here, right? So it's
Oh,
I
nice.
kind of keep it with the fractional stuff,
Mhm.
and I couldn't read what the hell was on it. So it's a little mini Beskar bar. For those of you who don't know what that is, look up Star Wars Beskar, right? And it says, so it's a fake. It's not a coin like the Beskar bars you get from Atmex or whoever.
Mhm.
They're actual coins from Nui. And at the bottom of this one, it says Hot Silver Company, but I couldn't read it. So get yourself a loop.
Gotta have the loop.
Get yourself a
Snoop a
loop
loop.
or a microscope. Get yourself a loop or a microscope. See those fine details.
Yeah. So today we're talking about prepping. And
Yeah.
guys, stick around to the end. We're gonna teach you how you could get a chance to win this really cool 5-ounce piece of poured silver. Get yourself some free silver. It's always good.
Ooh, I like free. Who
Free's a
doesn't
good
like
free's a
free?
good number.
Prepping. Why is prepping? Why should prepping be part of your stacking habits? Everybody should have a little bit, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, I mean for
Far
sure.
as
And
as far as a side prepper stack, kind of like what I got in front of me. Well, what would we call this stuff? Junk silver, right? People
that's
like that.
junk silver. Yep, yep.
It's all
You know,
dirt. My hands smell like it now. It just, eh.
I feel like the habit, or not the habit, the hobby of being a collector, a stacker, specifically silver, gold, precious metals, it's hand in hand with being a prepper. A lot of us are, to some extent, a prepper. Not like maybe full blown, 10 years worth of food in the garage or anything, but to some extent, we tend to think a little bit more about preservation of wealth and assets in case of some kind of scenario.
Give me a scenario. Just give me one small scenario.
Well, easy one that I think is not so out of touch would be a global financial crisis, a meltdown of the currency, dollar goes to zero, or
What about
hyperinflation.
what just happened here in the past week, 10 days?
Are you talking about
Airlines
the? Oh
airlines shut
yeah,
down.
hmm
Banking systems were kind of shut down there for a little while. What'd they do? Was it a Microsoft update and it just went all haywire and
just
it
saying
screwed
that,
stuff
but I
up
mean,
globally or whatever, right? So
exactly,
there was people
exactly,
stuck in airports. I know a guy that does content right here on YouTube, Stacking Surfer. He
right?
was stuck in an airport. Didn't know if he was
Mhm.
going to get a hotel room, didn't know what he was going to do.
Yeah. So those are realistic scenarios, right? It's not necessarily, people think prepping, they're thinking doomsday, like
Yeah.
something out of Red Dawn happens, we get blown up, grids down, and we're all like fighting to survive. Yes, of course, that's like worst case scenario, but these other scenarios, the ones you're talking about, are very likely to happen again and again and again, and they could be to the extent to where it cripples our currency.
Sure. Sure.
And
And
that's where gold and silver can come in.
it definitely can. It definitely can. And before we get too involved in it, I mean, you just take something like a natural disaster. Let's just say, and I'm just going to use this as an example. Why I think it's always good to have cash on hand while it's
Mm,
still
fresh.
used, right? While
Oh
it's
yeah.
still
Mhm.
used today, people recognize it. People are going to recognize $100 bill over me trying to explain that this silver dime is worth $2 or $3, right?
Not 10 cents.
Not 10 cents, right?
Right.
So you get into a natural disaster type situation like that, and your typical bag of ice is $2, and all of a sudden the store is going to raise it to 10 or 15. That's where
Mhm.
you got to have a little bit of cash supply on you, whether or not people like it or not. You got to have it.
They're not
Still
gonna
today,
take 6 or 7 silver dimes.
they're going to take the guy behind you holding up a $20 bill for
Right.
that bag of ice over a guy with a pocket full of change because
Right.
they just don't have the time to listen, and this ice is starting to melt.
Right. So, and that's a fantastic way to lead into this. I mean, obviously, today we want to talk about not just practical uses for
Yeah,
silver and gold in a grid down situation or in a SHTF. We want to talk about bartering and trade,
sure.
value preservation, historical examples, and storage and security too, because that's something you got to think about. If you're going to be holding all this stuff, you got to keep it safe, right? So,
Yeah,
what measures you
yeah.
can take for there? But Paul, I want to start with maybe asking you a question. What do you find? What are we? I guess what are you and I taught to know as the purpose for precious metals?
Preservation of wealth, right? It's not
100%.
for me, it's not there to get rich. It's there to my belief is to hold its value, not really lose its value over time. This stuff, you can go back and look at all these charts, and that chart guy from the comments a while back, we should probably had a chart up right now. But you go back and look at any chart you want to look at, and you can see the steady progression of the green arrow up on silver and gold as far as value increase, which we like to see, and that's everybody's belief in the world of precious metals. It isn't a get rich thing. Now, people can get rich if they got in at the right time and they bought the right amount, and all of a sudden it skyrocketed and they had a place to sell that physical silver. I think you could probably do better with paper as far as a get rich type thing, but even then you're
Mhm.
still it doesn't move that much all the time.
That's
So
right.
preservation of wealth, a storage of what a lot of people call worthless paper.
Mm.
You're holding something that has value. You're holding silver in your hand here.
Right. And so, in a grid down scenario, let's say the food supply chain breaks down, grocery stores are empty, they don't have anything, any of the normal stuff that you would normally need to survive day to day. What do you think the immediate needs of the people would be?
Cigarettes.
Yes, to deal with it.
You're going back to we're going to the county Hooskow now, baby. You're gonna want to make sure you got cartons of cigarettes for trade because people are gonna want no. Right off the bat, first thing that comes to my mind is some type of fuel,
Mhm.
whether it's gasoline, whether it's oil, whether it's diesel, whether it's propane,
Yeah.
whether it's natural gas. That's touchy because that's all ran by a company, right?
Mhm.
So
It's gotta be pumped
definitely
in.
for first thing that comes to mind is fuel, and it could be as simple as firewood, could be as
Right.
simple as charcoal. Those are things. The first thing that comes to my mind would be some type of fuel source.
Yeah, and that's one of them for sure. I'd say also water, food, medicine, consumables, things like that. So these are things that you might have a couple days supplies worth at home, but after those first few days, when people have and people do not have, they're going to want some means of barter or trade, and it's not going to be silver or gold.
And
Not
I
in that
guess and I
immediate.
guess that's and see, and then I guess that's where the question I thought it was at, where if I needed something from somebody, I think they would rather take a gallon of gas over
Exactly.
a handful of dimes.
Right.
At the get-go, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because
Yep.
this is something they need, and that is something that I need,
Right.
is where I was going with that. Of course you need
Yeah, of
food. Of
course.
course you need
So
water.
as a little bit of a disclaimer to I guess the show in general, but also to kind of roll us right into the topic,
Yeah.
it's just talking about the specific role of metals in this scenario that their need, their necessity, and their value might be offset by weeks or maybe even months until once like supply chains start to get back into order, the new currency
Exactly.
comes out or whatever, then it can be valued against gold, and then you have a new your storage of wealth carries true to the next phase of whatever the monetary
Exactly.
system
It's
is.
it's never going to be worthless. It's always gonna be worth something.
Right.
It's just to who and how much.
So, talking about the practical uses of gold and silver in a grid down situation, there really only are a couple, outside of trade, barter, etc., means of currency exchange. I would say one would be manufacture and repair. Like if there's something that you needed to fix, something that needed conduction, because both gold and silver are good for conduction, that could be used
Sure.
in that aspect. And also, silver also has those antimicrobial properties. Of course, you have to have the skill set to know how to actually
Yeah.
employ that, for antiseptics or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we got barter and trade. Right. So barter and trade, that's kind of a given, right? Once things get established, this is something that's going to be a currency alternative or some kind of a trusted medium, as Paul was showing. those coins have, stamped on one side, United States of America, the other side it's
Yep.
got George Washington. You know what they are, right? Everybody knows what they
We
are.
we know what they are as
Well,
far
you know
as
what the coin is, right? It's a
we know what the
recognizable
coin
thing.
is, right? But
Mhm.
you and I'm hoping folks that are listening to this know that certain years actually hold some silver content. But as we grow older and as the younger generations start taking over different businesses and things that we would believe we would be able to use this stuff at if needed, they may not know what the hell it is.
Right,
And they may not want to take the time or day to say, I don't care what you have there. It looks like a dime to me. It's 10
right.
cents. And actually, right now, it's not worth anything.
Mhm.
That's my only problem when it comes to kind of blow, not blow, full blown preppers. How?
SHTF. Yep.
Yeah, that's my only issue I have with that whole thing is
The general public doesn't know.
somebody's got to know what it is. You may know
Yep.
what it is. The people listening to you may know what it is, but when shit hits the fan, is the person you're trying to get rid of it to, do they know what it is? Or do
Yeah.
they not care? Now, I have done some bartering, for instance, this leather satchel, right? I had a guy made a couple of them, and I got another one over here and some other things that I paid him in silver for these. That's
Mhm.
just that's not that it is a barter. It's you took silver for this, but definitely not a barter in a SHTF situation.
Right.
The,
Like, I mean, if we're being frank, if I needed, I don't know, a gallon of milk for my crying baby, right? I
yeah,
would I would much rather uh pay you with like two or three chickens than with a couple coins because you might see those coins and say, get out of my face. I
yeah,
don't need that. I don't need
yeah,
coins. I need
yeah,
meat. Give me some chickens.
yeah,
So yeah,
right.
I mean, you gotta, I guess, look at it in perspective of what makes the most sense at that phase of the scenario. One
For
other one
sure.
other angle to this is that gold and silver, the coins that you had, the coins that you're showing,
Yeah,
those are a transportable medium of wealth, right? And I just want to highlight that right now there's a big Bitcoin craze, and whether you hold it or you don't doesn't
yep,
matter. For the sake of the argument here, grids down, right? We're talking no computers, no way of
yep.
transferring, 0.001 BTC
Bitcoin,
to
right?
Paul.
Yep.
That's not going to happen. But if you have a
Not gonna
little
happen.
handful of coins, you could
That's
just
right.
hand it right to them. So it is a transportable, transferable medium of currency. And I do want to say with silver, to your point, it is a wealth preservation. It's a value preservation medium, right?
Mhm.
But it's also, if you think about it, it is resistant to inflation. It might be slow, it might be delayed, but if you look at the rate at which inflation has occurred against the US dollar versus against a gold coin, it's almost inverse. Not
Yep.
exactly, but it's almost inverse. And I guarantee you that if a currency debasement were to happen, if the dollar goes to zero and we switch to a new currency, in that period of time, it'll be wishy-washy, but after that currency has been established, gold will be pegged to a new value against that new
Sure it
currency,
would. Sure it
and it
would.
would still hold a strength of what the equivalent to about 2,000 bucks today is, or
And
2,400, I guess.
that's where all the speculation is, and who knows even if in our lifetime we will see the dollar be 0, right? I don't
Mhm.
know that, you don't know that, and we don't know what would happen if that was to happen. Who's to say gold would go to 5,000? Who's to say gold would go to 10,000? Who's to say gold would just sit right where it's at?
Right?
We don't know, and it's all speculation, right?
Yeah. Mhm. And that's the beauty of it, is that we don't know. We can only guess, and that's what that speculation is. So
Yeah,
we do have historical
we
events to
do.
look at in the background. One of the most talked about, I think, in the coin community is the Weimar Republic of Germany. How those who held gold, they what ended up happening is it offset that currency devaluation in their country when their, what was it, a Reichmark or something like that? It might have been right before the Reichmark. I'm not sure, but whatever currency that was, it started. They printed and printed and printed, and it became worthless. But the ones who had gold, they were safe. They had some kind of a, maybe they couldn't exchange it in the moment, but as
Yep.
things progressed, as the time went on, they did have a way to to actually convert their money. And so that doesn't just go for Weimar. That goes for us in the US during the Great Depression. I say us, I wasn't around, but you know,
Those
your parents'
listening.
parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the Great Depression, right? Collapse of the Soviet Union, same thing. You got the Argentinian economic crisis. You got
Yeah.
Zimbabwe hyperinflation. Even post Vietnam War, and this was really interesting in both Vietnam during the war and in the Middle East at any given time, because let's be honest, it's a hot mess over there, and it has been for a
Oh,
long
shit.
time.
For years and years and years to come.
Anyone that holds gold or held gold in Vietnam, for instance, they had the ability to escape the troubles, right? Escape to a safer location. Of course, it's not an easy journey, but that gold is buying power. And when
Yes,
the
for
other
sure.
person, like you said, the person on the receiving end, when they understand what an ounce of gold is, they'd probably be willing to take the risk of taking you and your family on their boat, shuffling
Yep.
you out of the country to safety. So
Yep.
that's how you end up with these people in all these other countries, these political asylum seekers, right? They do that. The only reason they can even do that is they get out of the country because they have something to barter, and
Yeah,
in
they
this
have
case,
something
many
of
cases,
value.
it's gold. Yeah, good stuff, man. So, I mean, we see a lot of these other channels. They do talk about, using gold and silver, especially these dimes, these Merc dimes or whatever during SHTF. And I don't know, Polly, what's your message there?
It, look, it's to me, it's a smart thing to have because so you take these American Silver Eagles, for instance, right? If it was to happen, and let's just say there was years of it that we actually have to use this stuff as a backup plan, as a fallback. This is what I need to use. These are the people I'm going to deal with because they know what it is. And just to keep things simple, a loaf of bread. Let's say a loaf of bread is a half an ounce of silver. Okay, but these places you're going to go to, they're not going to give you change, right? So you don't want to come off a whole ounce of silver, and you're not going to cut it in half because they're not going to sit there and weigh the stuff. So that's where fractional type silver comes into play. Now, this is stamped with the United States of America. In the collapse of an
America.
economy of America and of American dollars, you think somebody's going to want to own something that says United States of America on it? I don't know. It's silver. It has 90% silver content, and the value is there. You take $1.40 and change of pre 64 and before change. That's the equivalent of 1 ounce of pure silver. And that's where that fractional comes into play. I can totally understand where they come from. It's just I can't become full on SHTF every second of my life. I
Oh
just can't
yeah, I
do it.
know.
I can't do it.
Raises your cortisol level.
It does. And things like this, right? So I have these little 10th ounce. Again, the lighting kind of shitty, but these little 10th ounce, it's good to have fractional silver rather than full ounces, especially if you're getting into things that are very, very fractional of buying, if that's what it's going to come to.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So
Do you think, before we go on, do you think stuff like this would be recognized? This is an ounce and a half silver cross.
if I were, I guess, pre-metals me, I would have thought that could be aluminum for all I know. I don't know what that is. Like
It could be
that's
stamped with anything, right? I mean, is somebody going to be
yeah.
able to test it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known the difference. So general public, I'd say no, they wouldn't know what that is. Poured pieces, they're cool, but they're only cool to somebody who knows what they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's tough, man. That's tough. So I guess, Paul,
And
what would
what
you say? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Continue on.
What would you say are some alternatives, items that people could consider using for barter in a grid down scenario?
Again, like I said, the first thing that comes to mind would be, some type of
Fuel,
fuel.
right?
People are gonna say, ammo, bullets. I don't think I would wanna come off any,
Yeah, that's so true
you
because
know?
chances are no one's making more.
No,
So,
and you're gonna wanna have your supply. If you have a green thumb and you have knowledge like yourself and myself and a lot of other people, fruits, vegetables, shoot, potatoes. If you got anywhere you can put
Mhm.
potatoes in the ground and have your own seed potatoes, stuff like that, of course, that's going to be very, very valuable. Now, me and my wife were just watching something last night. We watch these murder mystery things where people are never found, or they try and find them, stuff like that. It was, I believe, it was in Tokyo, and this is the number of people living in that area. Just for an instance of how many people? 27 million people were living in that area. Okay,
Mm.
I looked at my wife and I said, Jamie, I couldn't live there. I said, how could you do anything in an area with 27 million people? I said, I can't hardly stand the 1,300 people that live around us in this little area that we're in. I said,
Yep.
I couldn't do it. I could
Yep.
not do it. Now, you take an area like that, who's got the green thumb? Where are you putting anything in the dirt at? You got little pots maybe outside your patio or your balconies or anything like that. Where I'm at, and kind of maybe where you're at, you're fortunate to have some dirt to put
Right.
seed in the ground. But these people that live in these concrete jungles, man, those are the ones that are going to be coming looking for trouble.
Yeah. And that's gonna be tough for them because, I mean, like you said, you can't produce anything out there. So the only thing you could
You can't.
do
Just like
the
I
only
said, if you got a pot of dirt, put a seed in it. Hopefully you get something to sprout.
the only thing they could do is to stockpile in the meantime, but they wouldn't be able to produce anything new for sure. So
No.
along with
And they
what you
just don't have the
said,
skill. They don't have the skill set.
no, of course not. Yeah, you can't. There's nowhere to practice. So, but to your point, to what you said earlier, fuel, maybe ammo for some people, but obviously you're not coming off any. But I
No.
also think some things like salt,
Salt.
flour,
Yep.
even coffee. Like imagine supply chains run out of coffee and you got the last pot in your whole neighborhood. Either someone's coming for you
Me.
or yeah, exactly.
Coming from
And that actually, I forgot to cover this part, storage and security. So
Yeah.
speaking about storage and security, you got to think about some of the best practices during uncertain times, right? So what works the best? And there's a couple different angles to this. So physical security, obviously being your safe,
Yep.
any weapons and ammo that you guys have at your house to protect it. You got to think about privacy, not telling your neighbors, not flashing around stuff. Like you got to look the part too, right?
Yeah.
So if everyone else in your neighborhood for the last 3 months hasn't had a lot of food, they're probably going to start to get skinny and look lethargic, right?
Mhm.
If you're the one sitting
You're gonna
there
be rationing. Yep.
with your big belly, looking nice and swole,
Yeah.
and everybody else
Oh,
is kind of skinny,
you ain't gonna
you know,
want that.
yeah, they're gonna know. They're gonna know. So, if there's bread lines, show up at the bread lines. Complain about the
Yeah, right.
situation. Be like everybody else, and then you blend in.
Well,
But yeah,
let's touch on storage just real quick as far as a safe in your house. What style of safe do you prefer? Okay,
you're
hold
asking
on.
me.
Hold on, I'm asking you.
Okay,
Locking mechanism on the safe. What is your preferred style?
100% dial,
Yep. Yep. Okay, now
dial.
explain to the people why is that. Now, I understand that, and maybe many others do that. Oh, it's so nice having that touchpad. But
Mm.
carry on. Why is that a bad idea? Even though it's such a hot ticket seller, what happens?
Okay, so let me first start by saying in a scenario like right now, where there's nothing going on, but somebody's just coming to your house and breaking in, something like a mechanism can be eventually cracked. I don't know how much time they have. Maybe you're on vacation right now,
Mhm.
but eventually that combination could get cracked. If it's some biometric
Very
scan,
true.
that could be faked, or the thing could be jimmied open. One thing to think about is a lot of these safes, they're paper thin, right? They're like the gun safes that you see at like Bass Pro Shops, and
Yeah.
it's about like eighth of an inch
And you
steel.
think you think it's like, man, that's a good price for that safe, but
Yeah.
it's not that safe.
No, no, it's not. It's not. So you got to get ones that are like 3 to 4 inches thick
Yep.
of like straight steel or filled with cement, but it's still very thick steel bolts that
Yes.
lock the door in place, and That's the kind of
And
stuff
not
you want.
just one set of bolts, like, for instance, the one I have, when you turn that lock, it's coming in from the top, the
Yep.
bottom, and then the
Mhm.
sides. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of bolts and mechanisms there that I mean, it all has to work at the same time. Hopefully, I don't ever get locked out of it, but
Right.
why the dial over the digital?
Okay. So, talking SHTF, should there ever be a whatever, what are they called? The EMPs,
Yep.
electromagnetic pulse, right? That could fry your circuit. Not saying it would. Of course, the safe could, in theory, act as a Faraday cage, but I don't know if it would protect something on the outside of it. So, one would be that. The second one would be the battery runs out.
Mhm.
And then you're stuck scrambling, looking for a new battery and figuring out how to put it in because chances are you've never had to replace it
You've never
before.
replaced it, right?
And there you go. Now it doesn't work. So dial, I love the dial because it's just really easy. You know the combo. If you have it memorized, just don't get hit on the head or something because you might forget it.
And
but
there's just
and that,
something about a dial. There's just something about that dial. I mean, it takes you
oh, it's
back. I
sexy.
mean,
Yeah, man.
yeah. I mean, you think of old movies. The guy, the old wall safes. Picture frame is on a hinge on
Hmm.
the wall, and there he's got his nice little dial box
Oh
and
yeah.
opens it up. And
And then you got the crank.
yeah, yeah, love the crank. Gotta love the crank. But yeah, so that's definitely something to think about when you're buying a safe. Is
Mm,
what's it going to be used for? The thickness of it. They have such different temperature wise, right? So my brother had a house fire,
mm,
and his everything inside the safe, it got so hot in that house, and he thought he had a really good safe. Everything inside the safe was fine, but he's a knife collector, right? So inside the safe was his knives inside their sheaths. It got so hot in there that leather, the sheaths were ruined.
mm.
Because he couldn't pull the knives out of the sheaths. That's
Oh
how
wow.
shrunk and hot it got
Yeah.
inside, or at least around that safe. And then, not to mention, everything was just dumped with water. So water did get into the safe. Ultimately, it got into the
Yeah.
safe, and it was a pain in the ass, but we got the safe open. We did get it open.
That's wild. So was he able to use the dial after, or did you guys have to
The safe
like this?
was the safe was no, we had to cut it open. There
Oh
was there
wow.
was nothing left on the front of it.
That's
The
wild.
Yeah, it was a complete mess. But
Mm,
everything inside, as far as paperwork and stuff like that, that was left fine,
really?
but it
So
got hot to the
wow.
point where it shrunk the leather on those sheets.
That's crazy. Oh, I hope I never have to experience that with my safe. But,
What a mess. What a
wild, man.
mess.
Wild. All right. Well, that was good, man. I think if you guys watching at home or listening on the podcast, think of any other scenarios or any other practical uses for gold and silver in that kind of scenario,
Definitely leave that
please leave it in the
comment.
chat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leave it in
leave
the
it in the
chat, leave it in the comments. I wanna touch on just real quick before we end here. We talked about the US Mint and the DC comics, DC characters,
last week.
coins, medals, whatever they're gonna be doing.
Yep.
It was brought to my attention, and we didn't really bring it up. Do you understand why some of those characters look the way they looked, and we really didn't recognize some of the names and who they were and what they did?
Tell me. I'm
Well,
intrigued.
I was told that they take Aquaman, for instance. That
Sure.
Aquaman is what Aquaman looked like in the
In the
original
comics.
original Aquaman, and
Yep.
that's they're doing those style of characters rather than what we see today, which
Right.
made I mean, this guy, and I feel like an ass because I don't remember the name at the top, but left a outstanding comment on that video, really long and detailed of why they looked the way they looked, and then broke down actually listen to the whole video, broke down some of the characters like the Blue Beetle
Uh-huh.
of the time frame of when that was relevant, right? So that
That's
was
cool.
yeah, it
That's
was.
cool.
It was really
Yeah,
cool.
and
And we
I
we
think
appreciate that, I guess was my point is, we appreciate stuff like that. And there was another one that said, "If you don't know much about it, why are you making videos about it?" And I simply said, "Because not only do we like to speak with one another and have conversations and let people interact, we also like to learn as well. And you can learn
Absolutely.
inside these videos in the comment section of the videos. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it just because you don't know everything about a certain topic, you're still learning by talking about said topic.
Right.
It's not
And
rocket
I
science,
was
I guess.
just gonna say before you kind of said that is we kind of do a disservice to DC because we don't really know DC. Like if you ask me Marvel, I could probably rat off most of it. Like
Sure.
I know who almost all of the characters are. I know a lot of their backstories. DC, not so much, especially with those one-offs, those less publicly advertised, we'll say, less
Yeah.
commercialized ones, like
But again,
Hawkman.
in the 60s and 70s, they were like, I mean,
Yeah,
they were a major thing back then, and it's just because we don't know it doesn't mean it's still not a thing. So that guy
right.
that left that really long comment, he likes the fact that that's what the Aquaman looks like, and he likes the fact that, hey, there's the Blue
Mhm.
Beetle. I would love to get my hands on something like that because I haven't seen it in 30, 40 plus years,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah,
it's just cool to know that that's what they're there for. That's why they're doing it is, bringing back old stuff,
that
which
is neat.
it is
Yeah,
neat.
and here's an invitation to anybody who might watch any video on YouTube and say, "Man, the speakers don't really know what they're talking about." That's an invitation for you to make a video because
Yeah,
you can. You can make a
you can.
podcast. You can do whatever you want,
It
and
doesn't
you
have to
can.
be a podcast. It can be a video about anything.
And that's the cool thing is if you find that there is a content gap, you can fill it. How cool is that? Welcome to America or whatever country you're in, because I think you could do YouTube from all over the place. So
Most
welcome to
areas.
the world. Welcome to the internet.
Hello, welcome. Husky, what do you got?
I got the 5 ounce, man. 3 ways to win. Tell them. Oh, you're drinking. Oh, smoking.
Vaping. I'm getting my
Vaping.
vape on. Gonna want to have these in a barter situation.
Hey,
Um, right here on YouTube, the Crucible Dash Podcast at the Crucible Dash Podcast, right? You're looking at the cheat sheet. I got
I
it.
am.
I
Yep.
got the
At the
thumbs up.
Crucible Dash podcast.
Subscribe to that channel. We'll leave it in the description section down below. Make it real easy. One click of the mouse, go there, hit subscribe,
Mhm.
leave us a comment on a video. We appreciate that. Second way, the website, the cruciblelive.com. Go there, learn a little bit about a background information on Husky and myself. You're going to see a pop up. It's going to ask you for your email. Why do we want your email? Well, because we're going to spam the shit out of you. No, it's because if
Not today.
something happens to this platform, right, we want to be able to contact you and let you know, hey, we're over here on Rumble. Hey, we're going live on Instagram. We want to be able to get that information over
Spotify.
to you. We're live on Spotify. Well, I don't know if you can go live on Spotify. We're live on the Tiki Taki. Whatever's going to be new out there. Okay. cruciblelive.com. Next one, Instagram.
Yep.
Everybody's on the Instagram. If you're not on the Instagram, make an account because you're probably on Facebook, and Facebook and Instagram are pretty much like this. It's the same company. You go on Instagram, it's going to recognize you're on Facebook. You don't have to do nothing. Click a button, right? Look for at the Crucible Podcast. Did I get that one right?
Damn, you're good, man.
I
I don't know
know.
how you do that, man.
I got them. I'm like an
That's
elephant.
I'm jealous, dude. I was
All
like,
right. At
we're
the
we're
Crucible
we're almost a
Podcast.
year
Follow
into
us
it.
there. He's got a cheat sheet. It's all up here. Follow us there on Instagram. Say hello on something. That's 3 entries into the bucket. Get yourself 5 ounces of silver. What else you got?
Yeah, man.
What's
That's
next?
what is next, guys? You want to tell us what our next show is going to be? Put it in the comments below. We're happy to take suggestions, and if you know
Yeah.
anybody that's
Yeah.
making their rounds, they're making their rounds around the barracks. No, they're making them rounds on YouTube. Please have them reach out to us. We'd be happy to entertain new interviewees.
Call me. Best way to
Call me.
contact us is going to be Instagram or the website. So just remember that. If you're out there watching and you'd like to be part of this, which there are a few out there that still got to contact us back, or we just got to line them up. But it's nice just having you and I on here once in a while, We don't want
Yeah,
to bore everybody with everybody else's information.
some of them are real good though, man. Not gonna
They are
lie.
really good. Most of
That
them, if
Andy
not all of
Scheckman.
them, probably
Woo.
all of them. Yeah, he wants back on, so we'll definitely line something up. But we don't want to flood this, He's a great guy. Hell of a great guy. Lots and lots of knowledge. I know he wants to get his information out there and get his company name and all that great stuff out there. I see a lot of people that do pump the living heck out of his stuff, and I just don't want us to turn into
Oh,
that
of
as
course
far as
not. No,
somebody who's
no,
gonna
no.
ride the coattails on somebody's last name. So we appreciate the guy, a wealth of knowledge. You should definitely look into some of his information on right here on YouTube, all kinds of videos. But yeah, just great dude. He
Yeah,
wants to
man.
come back on. We'll have him back on and go from there.
All right. For
So I guess,
season 2.
yeah, season 2, you never know. All right, brother. I will check you later on, man.
Yeah,
Have
man. Have a
fun.
good one.
Later all.